Hello guys, so welcome to this tutorial, and in this video we're going to look at objects and array destructuring. Objects and array destructuring. So here I've created an array of objects which contains two blog posts as our objects, and I created this API endpoint to access those posts using the post ID. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable that I'll call blog, and I want to store the blogs that I will return by the ID. So first we'll start with the first one, and so here if I pull out the blog, this is going to be the first blog with the ID of 1. All right, so from here let's now look at the object destructuring. So let's start with the object. Now normally if you want to access an object, you do something like, let me log. In this block we have title, we have content, we have tags, we have author, we have created at, and all of that. So if I wanted to access any of those values, what I would do is to put in the blog.title, and that will return the title of the blog for me. So if I wanted to access other items or other values, here I'll put in content, and here I'll put in tags. So this is the normal way of accessing values of an object. You call the object, use dots, and then you pass in the key of the value you want to access. Now, but a better way of doing that is destructuring, which is what we want to learn now. So to destructure, use your curly brackets like this, and then you pass in the keys that you want to access as variables inside this curly bracket. So first I'll pass in the title, I'll pass in the contents, and I'll pass in the tags. Now I can also pass in created at, which is one of the key in the object. So now you have to put forth here the source of the keys, which in this case is coming from our blog. Okay, so I have destructured this object, the blog object, by extracting the title, the content, the tags, and the created ads. Now if I want to log the destructured content, I do not need to add the blog dots as I did here. So I'll just pass them out as variables. First, I'll put in the title, and if I put in content here, you see that it's giving me the same result as this one. I put in the tags, and I can also put created ads, and you see this lines of code is better and easier to read than this one. All right, so I'm going to comment out this. Now you can use these as variables, maybe your template literals or your concatenation. Let's take, for instance, here I want to just use template literals to make a sentence. I'll use the backticks, and I'll do something like the title of the first blog post is, now I would interpolate the title right inside here by passing in the title. And you can see that it is putting out for me the title of the blog. The title of the first blog post is 10 Tips to Learn JavaScript, which of course is the title of our first blog in the array objects that we have. Okay, so this is how you can destructure an object, okay, and it makes it easier for you to use. Now I'm going to comment this out and this. Now, how do you destructure an array? Let's look at array destructuring. To destructure an array, it's pretty similar to this thing that we did here, but then you have to create variables to store the items in your array. So we do this way. We don't use curly brackets, rather we use angle brackets. And I'll just pass in variables like item 1 and item 2. And I need also to state the source of this array. Now, because I want to, these tags here, this is an array, so I want to use this for this example. So I'll pass in this. You see, I have destructured the array, the tags array, and what that means is normally our array has this array tags has 3 items: JavaScript, programming, and web development. But in the code that I've written here, I've only destructured 2, the first 2, which is JavaScript for the item 1 and programming for item 2. Now you know that array is 0 index, so this item 1 takes the index of 0, this takes the index of 1. So if I want to log them out, I can simply pass in this item 1 and it gives me JavaScript. If I pass in item 2, it will give me programming. Okay, so you can see the difference on how you can destructure objects right up here, which means you have to extract the values of the key, not the values. You have to extract the keys of the value you want to access from your object. That's what we did here. We pass them as variables. But in the case of array, you need to create variables that will represent the items in the array, and the items are represented in their order of arrangement. So this is how you can destructure your object and your array. Now let's go straight to another thing, which is the rest and the spread operator. Okay, first we'll start with the rest operator, and for us to understand how the rest works, we need to see what we can use the rest operator to do. Here I'm going to first start with the array, and initially I had something like item 1, and then I do something like ... other items, and then the source of this array is tags. Now by the time I log out the item 1, it gives me JavaScript. Now, if I log out other items, it gives me programming and web development. So with this REST operator, this is REST, I am able to exclude one, which I destructured an item from all the arrays. So I destructured only one, and the remaining I kept them separate in another kind of variable that I called, in this case, other items. Now, this REST operator has to be at the end of your destructured items. So if I cut this from here and I put it somewhere like in the front, you see, we're going to have issue. Right here it says a REST element must be last in a destructuring pattern. So it can't come first, rather it has to be the last. That is for REST operators or REST pattern in array. Then for the spread here, so I'm also going to use the spread on array, and then we can use it on the object. And right inside here, I'm going to call this new array. All right, so this is the entire array, okay? And I have added HTML and CSS, but here it is not reflecting. Why? Because I have not applied this spread operator. So if I want to include this HTML and CSS to be part of this tags array, I now have to spread the the array itself here by putting the 3 dots. And when I put the 3 dots here, I need to log in the new array. Okay, you see what we have? We have the HTML and the CSS added to our tags array. Now let me show you, there's something that I missed. Without spreading this array and I pass in this new object or new items, you see that instead of being added to the original array, it is adding or creating a nested array for us where these new items will be included. But that's not what we want. We want it to be part of the original array, and for us to do that, we just have to spread the original array, then it will pick out all the items of that original array, add the new ones, and then store that in a new array, which is what we're having right now. Now, the spread operator can be in any position. It can be the first, it can also be it can be at the end, sorry, missed S. It can be in the beginning, it can be at the end. You can also move it to the center. It doesn't really matter. It will still work fine. And remember, when we tried moving this REST operator to the front, here it gave us issues. So this is how you can use the spread operator to add new items on an array of items. I like it being at the end. Yes, I like this arrangement. So that's my own personal choice. So you can arrange your own the way you want. All right. So now let's look at how we can use this spread operator on objects. Okay, because in the object We can use the spread operator to update or to merge different objects. And now, remember, I've already destructured our object here, so I don't need to destructure it again. But then I'm going to use the spread operator in this case, and I'll create a variable that I'll call new blog. Okay, this new blog, and I'll pass this. So what I'm going to do right now is two things. I will show you how you can use this spread operator to add new item to an object, and also how you can use it to update an existing item. So here we have our, let me log out. The new blog, right? At this point is empty. So here we have our blog with the first blog with the ID of 1, which is what we are working on now, and we have this title. So I want to add something here. Okay, let me just add an item here, which is called the host. So what I need to do is I need to spread the blog, okay, which in this case, this is what we have. This is the blog, and I'll put a comma. Now I want to include host as the key, while the value is, let me just call it golden marks tech. Right. Now look at what we have right here. Now we have this host to be part of the object. Our host item is added to our object immediately after this comments, and I will have it here. And how did I add that? By spreading the objects and then passing in the new key value pair that I want to include in our objects right here. Now let me move this spread to the back, and I save. You see, the new item added has also moved to the front, to the first line of our items. And if you look at this now, we have, this is not showing, this one, it is still here, but it's not showing the position. Okay, here we have the rearrangement. This is the first because we added the new item before spreading the object. Just like this, when we're spreading, we are adding new items to the array. Anyway, if you put this to the beginning, then the new items will be at the end. If you put it at the end, it will be at the beginning, and all of that. So the same way, if any position where you place this spread pattern in your object will determine whether the new items you're adding will be at the beginning or at the end. All right. Now, I want to reverse this like this. Now, this is how you can use the spread operator to add new items to your objects. How then do you update? How do you update? Let me include it here. I want to update the title, just to change something in the title, or I want to, let me work with the title. Let me change the title. This now is 10 tips for learning JavaScript. Now, if I want to update the title, I will just, after the spread, I would have to pass in the key that I want to update and then put in the new value that I want to pass as the updated value. So here I'll change it to 10 tips to learn CSS. Okay. And as I've done that, you see the title has changed. So because the spread operator, while iterating over the object, gets to see this title, it's already existing here. Okay, it's already existing. Now, what it's going to do is to change the value because the key is already there. It can create another key with the same title, then it can only change the value, and that is what updates our item in our object. Okay, but then for updating, you have to make sure that the spread pattern is before what you want to update. So if I should cut this from here and return it to the back like this, look at what happens. The new item we want to add will be there, but this updates, this one that we are trying to update is not going to be there. So this is our original array. This is the title, 10 tips to learning JavaScript. So the new object here, you see that the new item is added, but the title still remains the old title. Why? Because the spread pattern is at the back. So the JavaScript gets to see this line of code before coming to realize that, okay, you are spreading the items and you want to update this. So that is why, for me, I always like this being at the front, like this, so that we'll be able to get what we want, exact way we want it. All right. So this is the content for today, and I hope you have learned about JavaScript object and array destructuring, and also the rest and the spread operators, how to use the rest operator on array and objects, and also how to use the spread operator on objects and array. If you have learned something new, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing our videos so that more people will learn. Thank you, and see you in the next tutorial.